Tynan Portillo presents. Featuring the works of Edgar Allan Poe and the best horror stories from the 19th century. Welcome to the Poe Show podcast. Music and narration by Tynan Portillo. Today's episode, Rebirth, 1914 to 1918, by Rudyard Kipling. If any god should say, I will restore the world her yesterday, whole as before my judgments blasted it, who would not lift heart, eye, and hand in passion for the gift? If any god should will to wipe from mind the memory of this ill which is mankind, in soul and substance now, who would not bless even to tears his loving tenderness? If any god should give us leave to fly these present deaths we live, and safely die in those lost lives we lived ere we were born, what man but would not laugh the excuse to scorn? For we are what we are, so broke to blood and the strict works of war, so long subdued to sacrifice, that threadbare death commands hardly observance at our busier hands. Yet we were what we were, and fashioned so, it pleases us to stare at the far show of unbelievable years and shapes that flit, in our own likeness, on the edge of it. Welcome back to the Poe Show. I'm your host, Tynan Portillo. You may notice that episodes from now on will have a much better audio quality. For my birthday, I was gifted the Shure SM7DB by my family. I absolutely love it. It sounds beautiful. Thank you guys if you're watching. I love it. Be sure to send any questions about the podcast or an episode to the podcast by sending a text message using the link in the description. And if you're in need of a voice actor or a narrator for a project, you can email me with details at poeshowpod@gmail.com. This poem is quite unique in that it poses questions to the reader, asking whether or not you could blame one for wanting to go back to days before the devastation, the annihilation, and the loss of life, as well as innocence, of war. World War I was a pillar in American and world history. It was a war that was in the faces of all people. You think about the timeline too. Those who fought in World War I came back home, and just 21 years later, they've started a family, got a home, bought their first black and white TV. They're enjoying Walt Disney Studios premiering the first fully animated feature film of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And then they hear of Japan bombing Pearl Harbor and the United States entering this new world war just after they ended one. Now, of course, World War II didn't spring up out of nowhere. People had been hearing reports of Mr. Adolf rising to power and forming his Gestapo and developing political enemies in order to justify taking away the rights of all people of Germany. They knew that this authoritarian dictator had originally been voted into his office of power due to the economic crisis Germany was in, and he was going to get them out of it. And many believed in his message so much about restoring Germany to its original glory that they stood behind his blatantly racist ideologies about the Aryan race and those of Jewish or Polish descent, or even other minorities like black and gay people. But all of those groups of people were formed as political enemies in the eyes of German nationalist socialism. He was worshipped as a god to many desperate fanatics who followed him. But World War I was originally called the World War because nothing like it had ever happened before. It is truly the threshold of world history, and this poem demonstrates that World War I was the most monstrous event in our human history up till that point, one which we could never go back from, and one which humanity never wanted to repeat. And considering the fact that just 21 years later, suddenly we are repeating that part of history, it seems kind of astounding to me to think that we as mammals can revert to tribalism and identity politics so quickly after experiencing some of the worst tragedies and horrendous atrocities that we have to offer. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Poe Show. If you enjoyed what you heard and saw, because I am doing video episodes on YouTube now, then remember to like, subscribe, share with others you know like this kind of content, and follow on other social media like TikTok, Instagram, and more. All links available in the episode description. That's all for now. But you'll hear from me again on the next episode of The Poe Show.
And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.